Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sarah Gergel, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how COVID-19 impacted various communities in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. Today is May 25th, 2023, and this week there were 20 reported cases of COVID-19 in Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, which actually shows an 18% decrease over the last 2 weeks. Therefore, each subject is comfortable not wearing a mask. Reeves, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Reeves. I am a high school student at Myers Park, and I am wearing a white t-shirt that says NC State, which is my college shirt, and then I have on jean shorts and some green Converse.
Awesome. So Reeves, tell me, are you from Charlotte?
I am.
You
I was
are?
born here, yeah.
You were born here. You're a native. You're like a unicorn.
Yeah. You could say it like that.
Yeah. So tell me, what is one thing that you loved about growing up in Charlotte?
I really like the community here. I like how diverse it is and just how many people, and I really like the areas I live in and how they're all very like walkable and stuff.
Cool. I like that a lot. And so, if I remember correctly, you're 18.
I am.
You're just about to graduate high school. Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so you said NC State is where you're going to college?
Yes.
How exciting. Do you know what you're going to study?
I am definitely studying engineering, and I'm on the aerospace track right now.
Shut up. Tell me about that. What made you interested in aerospace?
Both of my parents were mechanical engineers, and I have always been really interested in planes. I've always enjoyed like flying and stuff, and my dad is actually a pilot, and he flies like the little Cessnas. He's not commercial, but he's taken me out and flying, and he's given me like basic lessons in the physics and stuff, and I also just really enjoy math and physics, so it seemed like a good track to go down.
That is so cool. So what do you want to, like, if you had a dream, what would it be to do with aerospace engineering?
I have no idea. Maybe like, I know there's a lot of government jobs with it, or just maybe like I think it'd be super cool to work for like Boeing or something like that and just have a job where I'm doing like the engineering for planes, because I think it's interesting.
Would you ever be like a pilot too, or you just prefer working on them?
I really enjoy flying. I haven't been able to find the time to get hours and study for the tests and stuff, but maybe at one point down the road.
Yeah. You're so young. You have a whole life to live. So
Yeah.
That's so exciting. So tell me, Reeves, you're just finishing up high school.
Mhm.
So tell me about your high school experience and what are some things that you enjoy doing?
My high school experience was definitely weird because we had about half of a freshman year and then COVID happened. And so we were fully online sophomore year, and junior year was really hard to come back into because junior year is one of the harder years of high school. And so that was tough. And then now, I feel like I'm chilling in senior year. But I really enjoy to run. I used to ride horses for the first few years of high school. Yeah, that's pretty much all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, you used to ride horses.
Yeah.
That is so cool. What kind of horses?
Just horses and ponies, all
Okay.
kinds.
Hey, would you do like competitive or?
I did a little bit of competitive for like a year, I think right at the end of my junior year. And then I ended up deciding to stop because I was a working student and I realized how much everything was costing and how many other opportunities I could have other than that. Yeah.
So crazy. So tell me about, let's kind of go back to freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what you felt during that time.
I was nervous going into freshman year, and I wasn't expecting anything to happen. I just thought I was going to have a normal high school experience, and then about halfway through, people started talking about COVID, and like that was before it was in the US, and so we were like, oh, that's crazy, like that's going on. And then it became real, and everyone was like, okay, 2 weeks off of school, and it was like the best thing ever. And then it just progressed, and we never came back to school.
Wow.
And then it was like fully online sophomore year and everything.
Yeah. How was that for you, adapting into an online curriculum?
It was, at the end of freshman year, it was really easy because they sent us home for 2 weeks, and then they were like, okay, we're going to be doing some online stuff, and then there was a lot of technology issues. Not everybody had Wi-Fi at home and working Chromebooks, and so they just kind of, they had it so you could either like take your grades, pass or fail, or I think there was an option to just like take your grades that you had at the when we went fully online. And so you didn't really have to do anything once we went online.
So interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you could just take your grades. So if
Yeah,
had,
you
like,
could just
straight
take your
A's,
grades.
You just, bam.
Yeah, it was
straight
really
A's.
nice.
Yeah, interesting. So in one way it relieved any pressure, but in another way it's also like it didn't really make you do anything.
Yeah, it was very brain numbing because you had so much going on, and then all of a sudden there was nothing.
I can imagine. What was it like in the early stages where you guys were locked down, basically at home? What did that feel like?
It was tough. I remember being on a lot of FaceTime calls with my friends, and then it kind of got to the point where I realized that I didn't value those friends as much, so I spent a lot of time or not value them, but I realized they weren't the best friends for me, so I spent a lot of time just like not talking to anybody and just interacting with my family. So that was definitely tough. Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that. When you kind of just take a break and you evaluate, it's a lot of self-reflection. Tell me about the process.
It was lonely at first, but I was able to see it as an opportunity and find things that I enjoyed to do. I ran cross country my freshman year before COVID happened, but I never was that serious about it. I just kind of hung out at practices and stuff, and when COVID happened, I was able to see that as an opportunity to like really improve my running and do a lot of work on that, and that became like the center of my life. Yeah. Where
would you run?
Just around the neighborhood, and I have 2 houses because I have divorced parents, so I'd run like back and forth. It's exactly a 5K.
Okay.
And I'd find new areas in town to run in, and just it also helped me learn the roads because I didn't have a license yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really smart. Very ingenious way.
Yeah.
So tell me about that too, about having 2 homes. Your parents were divorced.
Mm-hmm.
What did that feel like during the pandemic?
It was about the same. There's always been a lot of changes going on with that, like throughout my whole life. Like we used to do every 2 days I would swap, and then we changed it to like Monday and Tuesday would be my mom's, and then Wednesday, Thursday would be my dad's, and then I'd only swap weekends. And then during COVID, I stayed with one parent for a while, which was weird, living out of like one room.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be able to settle down, but then I was like, I still want to be able to see both. And so then we switched it to every other week, but there was just a lot of change with that, with the pandemic, and also there was like tension when I would get exposed to COVID. If I go to a camp, and I went to a camp for a month, and I think it was there that I got exposed to COVID, and it was like, oh, well, you need to like get tested, and the tests are coming back negative, but you're sick, and just a lot of like which house to go to, which house to stay at, where to quarantine, stuff like that.
Which house did you end up staying at?
I think it was my dad's.
Your dad's?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And you're an only child, is that correct?
I am.
Okay. So did that add another element of like, I don't know, what's it like being an only child? I'm not an only child, so I don't know.
I don't know what it's like to have siblings, but I feel like it's pretty lonely to be an only child, especially during the pandemic, because I didn't really have anybody to hang out with. But I feel like I get a lot of attention from my parents, and that's one thing that I don't really like about it, but it's also really cool that I get a lot of attention from my parents, and like they keep track of me and stuff.
Yeah. I can see how it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
Because it's nice to have parents who are involved.
Yeah.
But also especially you're a teenager, and you're like, yo, I need some space.
Yeah.
So tell me during that time, because you talk a lot about feeling lonely, and I can imagine what that was like. Tell me about what are some, other than running, which you mentioned, what are some other hobbies or some other things that you started doing to kind of help you process through that season?
Yeah. So one thing I did a lot of was make friendship bracelets.
Okay.
Like the little bracelets that you knot and they take forever. So that consumed a lot of my time. I did a lot of little crafts and stuff, and then my big thing that kind of like got me back into the world after COVID and after I let go of my old friend group that I had freshman year was I went and stayed at camp for a month. My camp, it's called YMCA Camp Harrison, and I met my best friend there, and that kind of helped me like get back out into the world, and we started hanging out a lot, and like I was able to hang out with her family and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so was that the summer of 2020 or summer of 2021?
It was the fall. It was during school. We did
Oh,
school
during
at
school.
camp. So
That's so interesting.
I believe it was 2021. I can't quite remember. Maybe it was
Okay.
2020. I really can't remember the years.
Wow. So tell me about that. You did school at camp.
Yeah. It was like the basic summer camp where you go and you stay in the cabins, but usually campers can't have their phones or any technology, and like you do activities throughout the day. But there was just a lot more freedom. We were able to go to camp and have all of our devices, and we got on school when our school started, and then when school ended, we just kind of did what we wanted around camp and made communities. And
That's really
yeah.
cool. Did you have restrictions like mask wearing or things like that?
Yeah, so throughout our cabin, we didn't. I think there was 10 or 11 girls staying in our cabin, and then there was a boys' cabin with like 4 or 5 boys. And so we didn't have to wear masks around each other, but there's conference weekends at my camp, and whenever there was anybody else on the camp property, we would wear a mask around them. So like if we went to like have a meal and there was a group in the dining hall, everybody would wear a mask.
Mm-hmm. And it was at camp that you were exposed to COVID.
Oh yeah, plenty of times.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. So what did you do when you were exposed? Did it kind of, like, what did you feel, I guess?
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that the time I got exposed was when I was there the summer after, and I was a leader in training, or we call them LITs, and one of our counselors tested positive for COVID, so we were all exposed, and then we all started getting sick.
Wow.
And there's this thing called the camp cold, and so everyone was like, no, it's the camp cold, like it's okay. And everyone was still wearing masks at camp at this point.
Yeah.
But someone in our cabin tested positive, I think, and we all got sent home a week early. We were supposed to be there for 4 weeks, and we got sent home at the end of week 3.
Oh, how did that make you feel?
It was sad because our last week we were supposed to go in cabins and stay with our kids and stuff, and we had like moved in and then we had to move out the day after. But we all went to the mountains after and just quarantined in a house together because we were like, if one of us has been exposed, we've all been exposed, like we might as well stay together for our last week. So that was a lot of fun.
That's so fun. I love how you guys made the best of the situation, you know? That's really cool. So now coming back to school, you had to do virtual school. What was that experience like?
It was interesting. At first, it was like, okay, we're gonna be super focused and like be into this and do our work, and then it became very easy. Like online school, everything was online, all the tests were open note because teachers knew that kids could like look stuff up, so they just made everything open, and the tests were a million times easier. And then it became like I would wake up 2 minutes before my class started and log in and then fall back asleep in bed on class, and just there were no consequences, so I didn't do a whole lot of learning.
And then when you had to go back to school your junior year,
Yeah.
how was that transition?
That was really hard because I thought it was going to be super easy again, and I was kind of banking on the fact that we were going to be online for another year. And we came back, we were all wearing masks, so you couldn't like really recognize anybody, and we were fully thrown back into everything. And so I had started taking APs at that point, and I was struggling. Like, I was like, there's no way I have to do any kind of schoolwork because I didn't have to last year. And my grades did kind of suffer because of that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm so sorry. And so now that you are in your senior year, how was that transition?
It kind of worked out for me.
Okay.
I struggled a lot junior year, and I was like, I need to get it together. And so I started working really hard my senior year. I started taking online classes at CPCC, but I took a hybrid class to start with to just kind of like show myself that I needed to like actually do the work online, and then that way all of my like, it was chemistry, all of my like labs and testing and everything were in person. But I feel like I kind of saw my struggle junior year after COVID as like, I have to work, like it's not just all gonna be a breeze.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet, man. And so do you feel like you're ready for college?
I think I am, yeah. I'm nervous for engineering because I've heard it's really tough, but I know I can do the work, and I know that I'm very driven to do my work now.
Okay, that's awesome. So in your perspective, how did you see your family being impacted, your parents get impacted by COVID?
I obviously saw everybody start working from home, and so it was just weird having everybody home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it definitely affected my dad in the way that he like had to stay home, and he had always done travel jobs and like been out of the house and stuff. And then my mom, she made the most of it, as she always does, but I remember being a little bit concerned for her at times because like I saw a lot of stuff online about the like hate on Asians and stuff like that, and I would worry that something like that would happen to her in public.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I never personally experienced it, but like I would go online and like people from my family would be posting about how people were committing hate crimes to like Asian Americans because we like started COVID. And I didn't really like that, and I was concerned about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And did you ever have a conversation with your mom about your concerns?
I don't think I ever did.
No.
I think she asked me about it a few times and was like, oh, has any of this been happening to you? And I was like, no, because I can kind of pass as white. But I don't really remember what her experience was with it. Yeah.
Did it ever make you afraid for yourself, or you kind of have this different identity, identifying as multiracial?
Yeah. I never really feared for myself because people don't really suspect anything unless I'm like, oh yeah, this is my race.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't negate the pain that you must have felt for your family and for others that you know who were. So I can imagine what that felt like. How about your community? What did community look like for you?
My community was mostly who I found at camp when I went, because that was like the only social interaction I had for a while.
Yeah.
And then I think I was still riding horses at that time, so like my barn community.
Yeah.
And I had a job I worked in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And we also served food, and that was a lot of my community. Like I was there like 5 days a week working, and that was so much of like who I talked to and told everything to.
Yeah. And how did you see, if there's any specific experience or story, how did you see your community get impacted by COVID?
For camp, obviously we couldn't see each other a lot, and like we all got sent home early, and just like having to wear a mask at camp is hard. And as a counselor now, I could never imagine making all of my like 6-year-olds keep their mask on all the time. So I'm sure it was really hard on the counselors at camp too. And then when it came to work, there wasn't a whole lot of impact other than like having to wear a mask and less business, and just like trying to enforce the mask policy was really hard with certain customers because they would just fight us so hard.
I bet. Can imagine. So before we started our recorded interview, we did an activity together called a hand map. Is there anything from your hand map that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I can share a little bit about, I feel like I've kind of shared on how I got into running and being athletic during COVID and how it kind of brought me to be more driven and hardworking, but I can share a little bit on the service aspect.
Sure.
In COVID, I didn't, here, I'll show my hand. I didn't have a lot to do, so I became a lot more involved in service, which was great. Just like service at my camp, like being a leader in training, we don't get paid, and we did like projects around camp and stuff like that, and I realized how much that benefited me and helped me find a community and just something to do during COVID, and I still work on that now.
Yeah, that's amazing. What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons you learned volunteering?
How much work other people put into so many things. Like at camp we built a sanctuary, it was in Eno Village. It was at a place called the Sanctuary, and we put poles in the ground and stuff, and like seeing how much work the maintenance people did to like make those poles for us, and just like hearing about other things they do around camp is like, it was really eye-opening because they do so much that we don't see.
Yeah, I love that. It really shifts your perspective, right?
Yeah.
And appreciation. Well, Reeves, thank you so much for sharing. I'm super grateful for your time and your honesty. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us? An experience, a story? It doesn't even have to be necessarily related to COVID. Just anything you want to share with us before we end, relating to your life.
I could share a little bit on the drama around COVID testing, because that was such a big part of my story. Just anytime anyone would get exposed to COVID, it'd be like, you need to take a test, but there was nowhere to get tests, or you'd have to pay like a bunch of money to get a test back. And just even now, like if you should take an at-home test or not, and if it's like wasteful, I know it's gotten a lot better and pretty much everyone has access to them, but especially like when they first came out, there was just like so much fighting and everything around like who could get their hands on a test.
I bet.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming. Yeah. Did you have to take them often? I got exposed a lot. Yeah. I bet. Was it super uncomfortable for you?
Not really. It was more, I have this video on my phone of where they test me at like a drugstore or something, and I like start sneezing.
Oh my gosh.
But that was like the worst of it. It's just like it makes you sneeze and it makes your eyes water. Yeah.
So interesting. Something that not a lot of people had to go through before COVID, right? Yeah. Because they have to stick that Q-tip up your nose, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. Super uncomfortable. Anything else that you wanted to share with us before we finish?
No, that's all.
Well, Reeves, thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck in college.
Thank you.